dismiss an impeachment complaint. And under the constitutional framework, the Senate assumes a distinct and separate function when acting an impeachment court. Please don't get me wrong, Mr. President. In fact, a lot of the statements made by Senator Bato de la Rosa, I share. I share the sentiments, Mr. President. In fact, Mr. President, when the impeachment case was filed or the articles of impeachment were transmitted here in the Senate an hour before we adjourned, Mr. President, before our break, a week after, more than 380 pages, Mr. President, of annexes ang dumating po, Mr. President. So, dun pa lang, Mr. President, I agree with Senator Bato's statement na somehow minadali or tignan natin. But again, Mr. President, my only concern here is that we have not yet convened as an impeachment court. We can probably dismiss this or even entertain the motion if we are already acting as an impeachment court. Let me go to my other point, Mr. President. The Senate lacks the power to dismiss an impeachment complaint and has no constitutional duty to proceed to trial. And that's why, Mr. President, if you recall yesterday, this representation mentioned that notices are very important when the minority leader made a motion yesterday that he wanted to stop our legislative work and proceed with the convening of the impeachment court. And he made mention about the calendar of activities, kung kailan magsisimula, ano yung timelines, etc., Mr. President. And that's why I objected again, Mr. President. So in the name of consistency, Mr. President, let me again state for the record, the power of initial determination belongs solely to the House of Representatives. You and I, Mr. President, were members of the House for quite a long time. And we talk about it all the time, that it is the sole power of the House.
ابدأ التداول على أورنج تريد بدولار واحد فقط. انتظر، دولار واحد فقط هذا صحيح.
Do you need a ride? Taxi app is a better way to ride. A taxi app.
To determine kung yung impeachment or articles of impeachment na itatransmit sa Senado ay mayroong required votes, etc., etc., at ang tanging sole authority naman ng Senado is to act as an impeachment court, not, Mr. President, not as a gatekeeper of the complaints sufficiency. Further, Mr. President, it bears emphasis that the framers of the Constitution intended a clear division of roles. House initiates and the Senate tries and decides. Again, Mr. President, I am not even going to say whether or not I will support the motion of our dear colleague, Senator Bato de la Rosa. I'm just saying, Mr. President, that it should be posed, Mr. President, in the impeachment court. Last but not the least, Mr. President, the Senate as a legislative body, or even when it sits as an impeachment court, Mr. President, ito po yung ating posisyon, may not dismiss the impeachment complaint due to change of Congress. Impeachment, Mr. President, is a political discretion. It's not a political discretion, but a constitutional mechanism rooted in the principle that public office is a public trust. Alam na po natin lahat yan bilang mga lingkod bayan. Yung sinasaad ng 87 Constitution, which provides public office, is a public trust. Public officers and employees must at all times be accountable to the people. This duty, Mr. President, is not suspended, nullified, or extinguished by the expiration of the legislative calendar or the transition to a new Congress. But again, I also believe and support these statements made a while ago by Senator Bato de la Rosa. Yung pong functus officius ng Senado, hindi ho applicable sa atin dahil kalahati nga ho sa atin dito, magiging parte pa rin ng impeachment court, parte pa rin ng Senado. Pero doon po sa House, hindi na. So kailangan talaga na malaman natin kung sila interesado pa dun sa impeachment na kanilang i-file. Mr. President, just this morning, if I don't know if this morning or last night, I saw an article. I'm not sure if it's Justice Ascuna or Attorney Divina saying that the House must actually do something, whether at least, the very least is to pass a resolution authorizing, Mr. President, their representatives, their prosecutors, that they are indeed have the blessing of the 20th Congress. Kaya po, muli, Ginoong Pangulo, ang aking pag-object doon po sa motion ng ating kagalang-galang at kaibigan, Senator Bato de la Rosa, ay base po sa mga binanggit ko po ng mga reasons. Maraming salamat, Ginoong Pangulo.
Before the chair makes a ruling, Senator Bato.
Yes, Mr. President. I just would like to share this August body, the basis for my motion. According to Chief Justice Renato Pono in Francisco versus House of Representatives, a number of things can be done before the Senate is convened as an impeachment court. For example, the Senate, which has the primary jurisdiction over the case, can decide the question of whether the one-year ban has been violated or not. Likewise, the Senate can decide whether the complaint on its face has any legal basis.
Mr. President, if I may,
So as not to belabor the point, Chair would like to state the parliamentary status and make a ruling. Again, to reiterate, Senator Bato, after the end of his privileged speech, made a motion, but before the chair could act on that motion, he asked for the recognition of Senator Bato, who wanted to second the motion of Senator Bato at the end of his speech. Before the chair could act on that motion and recognize Senator Bato, Senator 𝐷iveros and Senator Villanueva signified their intention to speak. Senator 𝐷iveros made a motion. Made a motion to suspend further consideration of the matter at hand so that we can proceed to take our oaths. And then Senator Marcos raised the point of order that there are too many pending motions on the floor and that we should dispose of them, as correctly pointed out by her. Senator Villanueva objected to the motion of Senator Bato. With the permission of Senator Villanueva, hindi ko po ituturing na objection yung inyong sinabi dahil ayon mismo sa inyo, hindi naman kayo tutol dun sa motion ni Senator Bato, kanya lamang. Gusto nyo at sa paniniwala nyo, pwede lamang ito magawa kapag court na at hindi bilang isang senador. Ayon sa authority na kinukot ni Senator Bato, may opinion, may concurring opinion. Si dating Chief Justice Puno na pwedeng itong gawin ng Senado. Concurring opinion siya concurring and dissenting opinion siya sa pagkakaalala ko sa Francisco. With the permission of the gentleman on the floor, the chair is of the considered view that and takes well the position of Senator Villanueva. We will act on the motion of Senator Bato, but as an impeachment court. We cannot act on the motion of Senator Bato unless we take our oaths as members of the impeachment court. Therefore, once the impeachment court is after we take our oaths and we convene the impeachment court, Senator Bato can reiterate his motion, Senator 𝐸𝐞 can then second his motion if at all, and we will proceed to dispose of such motion after we hear from everyone who wants to speak on the matter.
Mr. President, just to clarify your statement, Mr.
Senator
President.
Villanueva, before I make a ruling.
Yes, Mr. President, you were saying, Mr. President, because the way I look at it, you were saying, Mr. President, that in order for us to dispense with the motion of Senator Bato, we would have to convene
we would have to convene the impeachment
impeachment
court,
court.
as you said earlier.
Yes, Mr. President, I thank you for that. But in order for us to convene again, Mr. President, and just for the information of our law students and those who wanted to learn from these proceedings, Mr. President, this representation made a statement yesterday that we cannot proceed with the convening of the impeachment court unless we issue notices, Mr. President. And I made mention about it because the minority leader's motion yesterday was to convene and at the same time talk about the calendar of activities, Mr. President. And so I would just like to put that on record, Mr. President, because we are not going to discuss the agenda of the, if we convene the impeachment court. Is that the case, Mr.
The
President?
matters to be discussed requiring notice included the schedule, proposed schedule of the
Yes.
impeachment complaint, which needed the presence of the parties. However,
Because if we can do it by ourselves, for example, Mr. President, just approving our rules on impeachment, issuing summons, we don't need to issue notices. Is that correct, Mr. President?
However, there are certain matters that the court can do motu proprio,
Yes.
and it would perhaps include these matters, which is up for the consideration of the court once we convene. So again,
Mr. President, thank you.
Senator Bata is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just would like to counter the statement of Senator Joel Villanueva, Mr. President. You know, as the good Senate President mentioned yesterday, the Senate dismissed the impeachment complaint against Ombudsman Gutierrez after she resigned without convening the impeachment court. Therefore, the Senate, without convening ito impeachment court, is not prohibited from dismissing the impeachment case, Mr. President. It's very clear. When you say iba nga kasi nag-resign. Pero still, the capacity or the legality of the action of the Senate not convened as an impeachment court was not questioned. So therefore, considering this case,
Pumunta daw si Daniel sa kalsada
we can
kanina.
do the same, Mr. President.
Bumili ng ice.
Mr. President,
Tinalo
Mr.
ng
President,
ice.
if I may, Mr. President, this is a reaction, Mr.
With the
President.
permission of the gentleman who have the floor, Chair will suspend for a few minutes because you will most likely simply engage in debate because you
Hati-hati na daw,
have different
tapos.
positions
Ay,
on the matter.
narinig ko.
Session is suspended.
Thank you.
Tapos,
Kasi ang narinig daw ni Jamil, anim silang lahat. Pati-hatiin ko. Kung daw yung narinig ko.
Ready,
Yan daw
Set.
sasabihan, ewan ko.
trained. Trader one,
Sabi
win.
niya sa akin yan. Sabi ko sa
Just
kanila
$10
yan.
to begin. Start today with expert option.
I got myself these headphones here. I actually shipped these all the way from America to here, Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, straight to my house, using a company called 𝐷𝐸.
Tinilad-tilad na po natin yung original motion na hindi muna magko-constitute as impeachment court ngayong araw, i-refer nga sa Committee on Rules gaya ng hiniling ng good gentleman from Camarines Norte and BARM, at ngayong gabi, yung presiding officer lamang manunumpa. Bukas, tayong lahat ng iba ay manunumpa. At yung unang aktual na araw ng trabaho ng trial court ay sa Miyerkules pa. So please, maging resonable naman po tayo at tumupad naman po sa mga kasunduan nung tayo ay ilang oras na nagbubuo ng kompromiso na handa na nating tanggapin dito.
Session is resumed.
Mr. President,
What is the pleasure of the Honorable Villanueva?
yes, Mr. President, just to put into the records, Mr. President, that while the minority leader made a motion a while ago we were able to consult with different stakeholders, members of the Senate, and the minority leader agreed that this representation would amend his motion per se, Mr. President. And so with that, Mr. President, at this juncture, may I move to refer the verified complaint for impeachment against Vice President Sara Zimmerman Duterte to the Committee on Rules. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none. The motion is approved.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, in view of the referral of the verified complaint, may I respectfully move that the Senate President take his oath as presiding officer. So move, Mr. President.
What is the pleasure of the Honorable De La Rosa?
Mr. President, just for a clarification, is it correct to assume that though the Senate President takes his oath today, and as you said, the members will be taking their respective oath tomorrow, but the impeachment court is not yet convened, and it is going to be convened on Wednesday, June 11. Am I correct, Mr. President?
What
For the
does
record, just for the record.
What does the movement say?
Yes, Mr. President, the distinguished gentleman from Davao and Bohol is correct, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr.
That is
President.
the intention of the movement, Mr. President.
What is the pleasure of the Honorable
Para si Zoe, tignan mo.
Just to, Mr. President,
Pimentel?
just to complete the thought of the,
You may proceed, sir.
just to complete the thought of the latest motion of Senator Villanueva, it should, as the presiding officer of the impeachment court. And then, with the convening, Mr. President, I think tomorrow, when we take our oath, we are convened as the impeachment court. So I don't know. That's my technical understanding, Mr. President, because the presiding officer will now call the impeachment court to session, and then the members will now take their oath as senator judges. So that is already convening the court as far as this representation is concerned.
What does the
Mr. President, if I may, Mr. President, as the
Senator Villanueva is
As the
recognized. You
movement
may
of the
proceed.
motion, Mr. President, I stand firm with the motion that I am proposing right now, as this came through out of the consultations made by this representation to a lot of members of the Senate, Mr. President. Just to put that on record.
But
Just to clarify, this is akin or similar, Honorable Villanueva, to, for example, those who are newly elected to serve a term beginning January 30, 2025, who won in the last elections, where they can take their oath today,
Yes.
next week, or even for the past several days. But still, the term of their office will commence or begin on June 30. Would that be a good analogy?
Yes, Mr. President. You are correct, Mr. President.
What is the pleasure of the Honorable Marcos? Or nakatayo? What is the pleasure of the Honorable Padilla, and then De La Rosa?
Ginoong Pangulo, gusto ko lamang pong malinawan sa salitang Tagalog na ang hudyat po ng ating mahal na kapatid na Senator Joel Villanueva na kayo po ay mag-oath. Hindi po ibig sabihin na tayo po ay naguhubad na ngayon ng sombrero ng pagiging legislative body kung di tayo po ay hindi pa rin korte. Gusto ko lamang pong linawin.
Tama po, Ginoong Pangulo, ang binigkas ng ating kapatid Senator Robin Hood Padilla na hindi po natin hinuhubad ang ating sombrero bilang legislative body ng Senado, at hindi po tayo nagko-convene as an impeachment court.
Maraming salamat po. Yun lamang po, Ginoong.
Honorable De La Rosa and then the Honorable Tolentino.
I just would like to be clarified, Mr. President. If it follows that after all the members of this body have taken their oath, it would automatically trigger the convening of the impeachment court. Therefore, I move that we make our oath on the 11th, Mr. President, as originally scheduled.
Mr. President, if I may, Mr. President.
Senator Villanueva.
To just clarify, Mr. President, the motion is for the Senate President. At this time, the motion at hand is that the Senate President would take his oath as the presiding officer of the impeachment court. The next motion that we agreed upon a while ago is for the members of the Senate, the senator judges, to take their oaths, Mr. President. But just the same, Mr. President, let me emphasize again, whether today or tomorrow's oath taking, this representation was made to believe that we are not yet convening as a court.
I agree, Mr. President.
And we are to convene the impeachment court on Wednesday, June 11th.
I agree, Mr. President.
That is the
Senator Tolentino.
President, just to further clarify, Mr. President, the impending oath of the Senate President is, if I'm not mistaken, and the movement can clarify this, pursuant to Resolution 39, Section 3 of our rules, which states, and I quote the pertinent provision, the President of the Senate shall preside in all other cases of impeachment, and for that purpose be placed under the prescribed oath or affirmation by any person authorized by law to administer an oath. The same, Mr. President, is pursuant to the constitutional command under Article 11, Section 3, Paragraph 6, that when sitting for that purpose, referring to the impeachment, the senators shall be on oath or affirmation. Is that the correct clarification and interpretation, if I may ask the movement now, Mr. President?
What does the movement say?
Yung po bang panunumpa ngayon ng ating Senate President ay sang-ayon sa Resolution number 39 patungkol sa impeachment proceedings at sang-ayon din sa Article 11, Section 3 patungkol po sa panunumpa ng Senate President at lahat ng senador kung magbubukas ang isang impeachment trial court. Yun lamang po.
yes, Mr. President. The answer is in the affirmative, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President.
We can
Senator Pimentel is recognized.
since we are debating on the nature of the third motion, actually, we're still on the second motion. Kaya nga. So, maybe if we can wait for the third motion and then revive this topic, Mr. President.
I have no problem with that, Mr. President. And so I move for the previous motion, Mr. President. The previous motion to the Senate President.
And
to take
Senator
his oath.
Coco, you have no objection as to the clarification made by Senator De La Rosa earlier with respect to the second motion. Is that correct?
Because it is more appropriate for the third motion which has not
Yes.
been made, Mr. President. So, mas nalilito tayo when we anticipate
So
the
there
third
is no
motion.
reservation as to the second motion of the gentleman from Bulacan for the chair to take his oath as presiding officer. Is that the understanding of the
Presiding
chair?
officer of the impeachment court. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Senator De La Rosa.
My clarification, Mr. President, was not yet forthrightly answered, Mr. President. Can this, can the presiding officer give us a clear explanation as to whether or not we are convened right after all the members of this chamber have taken their oath. Because according to what we have discussed a while ago, that the convening of the court, of the impeachment court, shall proceed only on 11 or Wednesday.
That's no. We are still on the second motion, Honorable De La Rosa.
That is why, Mr. President, that's a precondition. Because otherwise, that's my question is a precondition to your taking
Understood.
oath. Because if you say that it will trigger, then I will object to your to that motion.
Understood. Senator Cayetano, what
Sir
is your
President,
pleasure?
If it will help,
You may proceed, sir, if it will help.
in the same manner, Mr. President, that you said that parang po yung mga nanalo nung May election, June 30 pa naman sila mag-hold office pero pwede na sila mag-oath. If the Supreme Court was in recess now, but the President appointed 3, 4, 5, 6 justices, they can take their oath. At kahit 15 yan na sabay-sabay ng oath, it will not mean that they are convening the Supreme Court for another session. They will still be in recess. It will be either the law, which sets a date, or in our case, here in plenary, we will set the date kung kailan i-convene. So if it will help, so what will happen is you will take your oath tonight, then because we referred it to the Committee on Rules, then following precedents, which is part of our rules, then tomorrow, we will take our oath as a group, but yung pagko-convene, in accordance then with our agreement and your notice, will be on Wednesday. If we all accept that, our taking of our oath tomorrow will not trigger the convention of the of convening of the trial court. Of course, if we all agree today that after we take our oath it will convene, then it will convene. But if we all agree we will just be taking our oath today, it's no different than new appointees of the Supreme Court or the CA or the RTC taking their oath, then waiting till the recess is over before they convene. Now, if we all accept that, Mr. President.
Senator Ontiveros is recognized.
Salamat po, Mr. President. Mr. President, mga kasama, ang ginawa natin, tinilad-tilad natin yung original motion ng minority leader. Dahil sa primary issue na ni-raise ng gentleman from Camarines Norte and BARM na dapat tulad ng naging